Hey everybody, Renee here in my office again today. And you know, one of the first things people say when they come into my office is, wow, you must really love to read because you have a ton of books. Well, I do love to read. I probably read about 100 books a year. It's a ton of fun. And it might surprise you to know that not all these books in my office are books by people with whom I agree. It's interesting for me to sometimes read books by people from all kinds of different perspectives that I haven't considered before, maybe perspectives that I know I disagree with. I just like to see what their arguments are. I have a couple of books by members of a group called the Jesus Seminar. Now, these are people I really disagree with on a couple of key points. And one is they don't think that Jesus Christ intended to be crucified. They believe that it was all some horrible miscalculation. He was naive, maybe a little bit overambitious, maybe he had some delusions of grandeur, but they claim he thought he would be delivered. He did not think he would die. That was all just some kind of a tragic accident. Well, of course, that is not what the Bible says. The Bible says that Jesus was very clear with his disciples on numerous occasions that he would one day be crucified in Jerusalem, that he would be betrayed by members of the chief priests, the temple leadership, and then that the Gentiles would torture him and would brutally put him to death. He repeatedly tells his disciples this. We looked at this last weekend at church 3 times in 3 chapters in Mark's gospel. He talks about this, and we read specifically the verses Mark 32, 33, and 34 in chapter 10, verses 32, 33, and 34. It says, "They were on their way up to Jerusalem with Jesus leading the way. The disciples were astonished. Those who followed were afraid. And he took the 12 aside and told them, 'We are going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man,'" that was his code name for himself, "will be delivered over to the chief priests, the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death. They will hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. And 3 days later, he will rise." In other words, his death was no surprise to Jesus. Before the Romans knew anything about what they were going to do, before Judas had anything planned, before the chief priests knew about their own mock trial, before any of it played out on the stage of history, Jesus already knew. Jesus already was very deliberate about the fact that he was going to be crucified. Why? That was part of an age-old plan to pay our debt, our sin debt that we owed. And we know it was age-old because there are many, many dozens of predictions about this, about how the fact that the Messiah would die and by his wounds we would be healed, and the punishment that would bring us peace would be upon him. In other words, Jesus' death was not some tragic accident that God somehow redeemed. It was all part of a centuries-old plan that God put into place because he loves you. And he wants to have a relationship with you. And he wants nothing standing in the way of that relationship. Man, does that not make you feel loved? Does that not make you feel like you are worth something, like your existence is worthwhile? You and I were the objects of a plan hatched millennia ago for God to redeem us because he loves us. Just amazing. If that doesn't move you to gratitude and give you a sense of worth and meaning during this Lent period as we focus on the cross of Christ, man, I don't know what will. You are loved. You are the object of God's plan to love you and redeem you and ransom you from your chains. Wow, let that truth give you a great day today. God bless.